Why would someone with a transferable book of business make a change?
Wowza, wowza, wowza. What a show we just had. And I'm going to bring on Eric Levin from Model Match. He's a great dude, by the way. For those of you that don't know him, you got to listen to this. He's such a great dude. And Model Match is a company, superior, data-driven. What you're going to hear about in this podcast, aside from a bunch of stories in the beginning, all that, you're going to hear about data and how important data is and how to use it properly in order to grow your business. And then you're going to hear about a lot of experiences and a lot of stories, including my dad. We talked a lot about my dad in this one, which was just special to me. It's how I learned to be how I am, and I think I hope you guys enjoy the stories, is because they're real and they're raw and authentic. I even shed a tear at the very end, just a little bit, so you guys know, just a little. But this is a great podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hey guys, we are back with Eric Levin from Model Match. And before we even get into anything, I just want to let everybody here know that my partner and I beat him at cornhole. Thank you very much.
Well, okay, let's talk about that for a second. That is true. You did beat me at cornhole. There's something that happened from that though. I'm one of those. I don't know if you've gotten this yet, but I'm sometimes unhealthily competitive. And so when there's sports that I don't generally play or I haven't had a chance to practice, I still think I should be able to beat everybody. And so I generally wouldn't do things like that. I had no intention of playing cornhole that day, but a couple of people were like, "Oh, hell no, you're playing cornhole." So I did. And guess what? You can meet new people and build new relationships playing cornhole because you and I didn't even know each other before then.
So we did, and we've quickly become friends. But I do have to laugh a little bit because yes, but you probably don't remember, but you were so busy trying to close me on using Model Match that I even think maybe you let me win.
No, I definitely did not. You beat me. I don't let anybody win at anything. Like that you beat me fair and square. When I lose, and then I get mad. And then it's surprising I didn't go home and buy a cornhole set just so I could practice to make sure that never happens again.
Yeah, so I didn't actually know any of this about you, and I'll let you talk about it. And you better bring up the soccer team here. But first question, yeah, I had no idea what all that stuff was. I thought you were like an Iron Man or something, But
No,
let's
yeah,
start with
no.
this. Who is Eric Levin, both personally and professionally?
Oh man. Okay. So married to Nikki, my North Star, father to Abe and Tate in their low to mid 20s. They both live I'm in North Carolina. I'm in the western part of the state. My boys are in Utah, mostly because my oldest fell in love with that part of the country. He went on this big countrywide camp trip when he was a senior in high school, and he came back and said, "Utah is beautiful and I can snowboard and I can climb." And so he's out there right now. My youngest followed him out there and went to school as well. What else about me? I was a recruiter sitting in a cubicle 20 years or so ago, dialing for dollars, and thought, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. There has to be a better way to identify, engage, convert, and we'll talk about that and the progression of what that potentially eventually led to. I was an athlete growing up. I was an athlete in high school. I was a wannabe athlete in college. I got hurt and kept competing, but not competitively like at the collegiate level anymore. And then fast forward about 4 or 5 years ago, an employee came to me, a Model Match employee, who's not a Model Match employee anymore. He actually runs business development for another mortgage company now. But he was from Oxford, England, and was an All-American soccer player in the United States. He could have gone back and played professionally, but he met a girl, as happens sometimes. And he came to me one day and he said, "Do you think a semi-pro soccer team could work in Hickory, North Carolina?" And I did not say yes right away. But once I did say yes, it was game on. And so as sort of a side thing, we have a soccer team, a football club for you Americans that don't like to call it football, which, by the way, I'm still sort of being converted on that also. We play 4th division, which is semi-pro. And second year, we won the national championship last year.
Nice. Now, do you just get to sit in the owner's box or do you play?
Oh, I don't play. No. These are legit players from all over the world, actually. It's really cool. We our coach is Spanish, And not that that matters, but he's got a recruiting pipeline that kind of extends all over the country. Most of these clubs do. And in Little Hickory, North Carolina, a town of about 40,000 in Western North Carolina in the foothills, for 3 months out of the year, you're going to see kids from Germany, from Denmark, from New Zealand, from England, Australia, Kenya, all over the globe come to
Yeah.
this little town and wear the red and black and represent this community. And it's really, I
That's
knew it was
interesting.
going to be special, Dino. Like I wasn't interested in doing something that was just going to be a hobby. It couldn't interfere with model match. That's all day, every day. But I'm proud of the crew. We've done a good job. And I fall in love with these players, honestly, and our coaching staff. And it's given me a connection to the community that I've never had before. And it's something pretty cool, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And in model match. So let me back up. I guess 20 years ago, you're sitting in the cube recruiting. Were you recruiting in the mortgage business or somewhere else?
I was. So I had a degree in communications in undergrad. I was a semester into getting a master's in kinesiology, but I'm not a good student. I didn't like going to class. I mean, I was a good enough student to graduate from college and to get accepted into a master's program, I guess, but I
Yeah, I
really
mean, that's not
wasn't.
bad.
I mean, I wasn't. I was a C student, honestly. And
And then you met
but
a girl.
Kinda, yeah. I met a girl at UNC Wilmington in La Costa, North Carolina, and I moved to New York for about a year to work on my master's. We decided we wanted to be together, so I moved back to North Carolina, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I mean, here I am with a degree and started towards a master's, and I moved to this little town in Western North Carolina where I didn't know anybody. Everybody knew everybody because this is one of those old money towns, a lot of, furniture, fabrics, fiber optics, like
Okay.
those are the industries that sort of ran this town, multi-generational. So if you had a particular last name, you were good. If you didn't, or if you weren't connected to one of those last names, it was a little hard to break in. And I was having a hard time. And I met a guy named Bill Castell who had a recruiting firm. It's called Management Advisors International. And at the time, they were one of the more well-known recruiting firms in real estate finance. So mostly mortgage, a little bit of banking, um, not mostly sales though. Dino, it was mostly executive level, C-suite kind of positions. And I met him because my wife introduced me to his son because she was afraid I wasn't gonna have any friends in Hickory. And I wasn't looking for any friends, but I definitely needed a better job. And so they hired me, commission only, taught me the business. And, here I am, a husband with a pregnant wife with no savings and 100% commission. As scary as that is, boy, you figure it out real fast, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that started.
So my dad told me, and this is a good lesson for everybody who doesn't have enough money. He said, "Son," he goes, "you want to make more money? He goes, get married. You'll find yourself making more money."
True.
I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "You want to make more money?" He goes, "Have a baby. You'll find yourself making more money."
Yep.
He goes, "You want to make more money?" He goes, "Have another baby." He goes, "Don't buy cars thinking that'll make you work harder." He goes, "Babies will make you work harder. The cars will naturally come if you want after the babies."
Yeah.
So
It's actually true. When when we were about to have our first, and man, it's all blurry now, the dates. But yeah, Abe was born not long after I started there, or around that time. I don't remember, but I do remember the CEO of that company was very happy to know that we had a small baby at home
yeah.
because there's nothing that'll move. I tell you what, another story. I remember the first time, and I realize we're totally not on any particular topic right now, but I remember being that broke recruiter, 100% commission, not really telling my wife just how stressed out I was about being able to provide for this family that we were building. And I remember being at Target, and I usually didn't go with her to Target, but I went with her to Target and she was buying diapers and formula. And I'm watching her take these cans of formula and putting it in the basket. And of course, I'm looking to see how much the formula costs, and I'm just doing math in my head. And I asked her, I said, and I was trying to be very coy about it. I said, so that'll last like what, a month? And she looked at me and she said, I swear you're never coming shopping with me again if you're going to do this. And no, that's a week. That's not a month. And then I was like, okay, somebody needs to come in earlier and stay later.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100% commission, which by the way, this puts me in a position where I feel like a level of connection to originators that are 100% commission. And maybe we'll get into this a little bit, but I do think that a lot of times as leaders in this industry, we devalue what might be motivating someone. And when you're 100% commission, sometimes that motivation is owned a little bit differently than if you have a job where your salary is 75 grand or 125 grand. I came from that, and I'm proud that I came from that, and I'll never forget it. Like I think about that every day. And
Yeah.
honestly, you know this, Dino, as a business owner, really what's changed? Because if the business doesn't make money, neither do I.
Yep. Yep. It's not for everybody. I've definitely also understand that. And it'll freak some people out so much that they actually just get paralyzed
Mhm.
and they can't do it. And then there's other people such as, us, where being up against the wall a little bit, it's probably a good thing because it forces us not just to work harder, but to start getting a little uncomfortable.
Sure.
Because ultimately, everything I've done in my career that's propelled me to the next level has been when I tried something a little uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And it's not easy, right? Like it always requires just a little bit more. But that's where I think it's super important to get out of the day-to-day work and start working on the business planning and then more time for execution. But at the end of the day, man, sometimes you just gotta freaking fire the damn gun and keep shooting, and you'll narrow in on the target as you shoot, right? Like when you have the luxury, because you've now made it, all that stuff, then you hire teams, you do whatever, you plan, you line up the scope, you hit the target. But sometimes in those early years, you just start firing. And it's way better than just working. You gotta try stuff.
I couldn't agree more. I've kind of had an interesting day today. So
Is this
I'm
gonna be
the
a long story
it's
or
not gonna be a long story.
okay?
Are you gonna put me on a time? I'm on a clock. I'm on a shot clock now.
No.
The I spoke at an event on a nonprofit that I'm currently the head of the board, and it's a YMCA, but here in Catawba Valley. But I don't view it as a YMCA. Our YMCA is very different. It's sort of like the epicenter of the community, and we've grown from a $3 million association to like a $20+ million association in a very
Wow.
short period of time. And somebody came up to me before I spoke, and he introduced himself and he said, "You might not remember me, but I met you a couple years ago, and my son met you on the streets of Hickory, on the downtown square one day." And I asked him who was his son. He said, "Well, you might not remember. It was a short conversation, but he was starting a small business, and you gave him advice." And I said, "Oh, I did. Do you remember what advice I gave him?" And he said, "Yeah, he told you everything he was looking to accomplish, and then you told him, just start, break it, and then figure out how to fix it. And then do that for the rest of your life."
Yeah.
And I said, "Wow, okay. Well, how's he doing?" He goes, "Well, he did it, and he started it, and a couple things didn't work, and he learned from it, and he improved." You and I have had this conversation about software before. One of the things I've learned about getting into software is that people talk about building something. No, it's never built. You're
Yeah.
always building. And that's kind of the philosophy that I think you're talking about right now. You can't be afraid to break something. And breaking things are great because now don't do that again.
Yeah, it's so I grew up in uh, the fast food restaurant business. My
Oh,
dad
really?
owned a few different restaurants. In fact, your partner is down in San Clemente, and that's where I grew up, right? Pedro's Tacos is down there,
Okay.
and that's like this infamous little Mexican restaurant that just made it across the world. It's unbelievable. But I remember when my dad started it, and we had never done Mexican before. Prior to that, it was always hamburgers. And
Okay.
and my dad's like, he got so we're just going off now, but here we go, right? So uh, he called them movie stars. The previous restaurant was called Mr. Pete's, and it was so busy, like ridiculously busy. It nailed it. It was one of the busiest restaurants probably in Southern California. And in order to work the kitchen line, you had to be way above, above par, like way above it. Otherwise, you just couldn't even function in it. And the guys working there, the cooks, were so fast. It
Mhm.
was ridiculous, right? So everybody had to be on par in order for this to work properly. But what happened is this is back in the 70s. My dad started having to pay them $20 an hour in the 70s because they had him by the short curlies because nobody else could work the kitchen. And he got to a point where he started calling the movie stars and he was like, son, he's like, whatever you do when you get older, don't ever be in a situation where the movie stars have you, where you don't want them to have you. And he started analyzing McDonald's. And he's like, you can say what you want about McDonald's, but it's genius. It's just the most genius operation in the world. He goes, any monkey can work at McDonald's. How much ketchup and mustard and whatever you put on the burger? He goes, you just squeeze one time and the perfect amount comes out.
Mhm.
Versus we had like these ketchup bottles, right? And sometimes you pour a little too much, sometimes you don't do enough. Somebody complains, whatever it is, right? But
Mhm.
always the same at McDonald's. The French fries, you'll never overcook because the loudest buzzer in the world beeps when it's time to lift them up. I'm sure nowadays they just lift up on their own, right? But he like started studying that, and then he said, we need to get out of the burger business because it was such a beast of a restaurant that you couldn't even unwind it really, right? So he decided we're going to get into Mexican food. And he goes, beans, that's where the profit is anyway. So, and what happened is like, and this all, I'm going to relate this, I'm going to bring it all back to mortgage, you guys. I promise I'm going to bring it back. But the burger takes X amount of minutes to cook. And then because it was so busy, you had to be so good. So my dad got to a point where he's like, hey, you see four guys walking in the door. If they're big guys, throw 8 patties down. If they're smaller guys, throw 4 down. Period. Right? Like if you cook too many, it's fine. Somebody else will come in. And if you think about that process, right? It's like he's trying to get an extra like 2 minutes
Mhm.
before they order and do all that stuff. And you think about like in the mortgage business, the lead to speed. And I was just talking to somebody and he goes, you realize that the big boys, they'll spend $500,000 just trying to gain 1 second on how fast they can call that person before anybody else does.
Right.
So so going back to this model, he turned it into Mexican food. He created a custom like heating unit and basically said, okay, now you cook 10 carne asada burritos, 10 bean and cheese burritos, 10 tacos, 10 this, 10 that. And then when you finish, you just start over and you do it again. During lunch hour, you do a little bit more after that, right? And if you see one emptying out, you stop, you refill that one if it's the more popular one, and then system. So that's where I'm going with this.
Yep.
In our industry, based on my own personal experience as a mortgage originator, I worked my tail off doing everything. But the second I created a system, I didn't have to work as hard and I became more proficient at it. And all of a sudden, the system handled the work, not me.
Mhm.
Right. So I'd say when I look at everybody, some of the biggest challenges are they're just working their ass off and they don't have any systems. And they might have some systems in place that they don't even know they have, but they just do them all the time. And
Right.
that's great. But I challenge you guys to like step back, analyze what you guys do every single day and ask yourself, can some of it be automated? Can some of it somebody else do? And then ultimately, how do you create it so it's just always happening that way and there's no deviation unless it requires deviation, right? And I think that's super important. So I love what you said. Like you gave the advice to the kid, break it. And then I'm going to bring it right back to my dad again because he was truly my best mentor. Um, he broke things so often
Mhm.
and just kept on fixing them, kept on working them, and would get advice from people, other restaurateurs, friends. He's like, stop worrying so much about how good the food tastes. Just make a really hot sauce, hot salsa, and they won't even know that the quality of meat isn't good or this
Ooh.
isn't right. And I was like, no, that's just not that's not what I'm gonna have. And for those of you guys that listen to all the shows, you've heard this before, right? And Greeks can never say hamburger; they always say hamburgi. And he goes, make the best hamburgi you can, and the money will come, and the people will come. And it's the same thing treat the people right and give them the absolute best experience. And if you do that, they will come. And if they come, the money will come.
Wow, man. Like, I just wanna talk about your dad now, and I wanna get to like, Southern California and go eat with you somewhere. I
Oh,
didn't know any of that about you, and that's it's super interesting. It also like, I think about a lot of things in that story, and that is, was your dad's motivation the the pursuit of what he felt like was perfection in the systems, or was your dad's motivation what the balance sheet said, what the bottom line was spitting out? How did he manage those 2 things?
yeah, it was never the balance sheet. Um, the and I'll even relate this to me. Somebody asked me one time, when do I get my high? And it was when I get the referral. When
Mhm.
I got the referral, I got the high. I knew the check would come. If I got the referral, I knew the check would come.
Right,
But the system like I orchestrated worked because
right.
I got the referral. And the referral is the very last thing that happens in my timeline of a 1 year cycle, let's call it, from a client. And then it starts, I shouldn't say 1 year. It ends the second that one client gives me a referral. I know
Mhm.
I've accomplished it. Now I swing them back around again, right? I don't stop there, but then the next one starts. And I just kept building on that. So going back to my dad, it was the same thing. He didn't spend a $500,000 trying to figure out how to go speed to lead by 1 second, but he would spend lots of money, time, and effort on how to get that hamburger or that burrito, that hamburgi or that burrito out just a little bit faster every
Mhm.
single time. And he said, he goes like, he's like, what do they call these restaurants, right? It wasn't fine dining, it didn't have waiters. It was like you pull up, right? It goes, they call it fast food. He goes, you know why they call it fast food? Because it's supposed to be fast.
Right.
Do you fail at having a fast food restaurant if you take 10, 15, 20 minutes to get food out to somebody? The answer is yes, you fail. Same thing with our mortgage business. And it's funny, I didn't even put this together, but my dad was always about that. In my mortgage business, like as a loan officer, right? I was always about how can I shave a day or two or 10 or 15 off of the stereotypical 30-day close.
Mhm.
And my whole thing was 15-day close every single time. And there was times where my team would be like, dude, come on. We're busy right now. And I'm like, I know, but we're going to get busier. And we're
Mhm.
not going to get busier if we don't do this. If we don't do it, we're going to be just like everybody else. And then there's no reason for somebody to think we're special if we're just like everybody else. So,
You
you
know,
know,
we I mean, this is we should just have a freaking podcast episode on your pops, man. I mean, that this is, I love this. When I tie it back to our industry, I had a conversation with someone here recently about do we have, and I've been talking about this a lot lately. Does this industry have a laziness problem? Or is there a leadership problem? Like, if you had to pick those 2 things, laziness versus leadership, which is the biggest challenge? And I think generally it's more of a leadership challenge than it is a laziness challenge. Doesn't mean that there's not lazy people, and there's lazy people everywhere, man. It's not about this industry. Um, but I spoke at an event last week, and before I went on stage, there was a great speaker before me, um, and she it couldn't get, like, the attention of the crowd. The audience just was a bad audience, quite frankly, and they were doing this the whole time. They're on their phones.
yeah,
And I'm confident they were not checking Instagram or Facebook, or what they were doing. They were in their pipelines is what they were doing. And so when I came on stage, and by the way, I ended up spending about 5 minutes on stage because I could tell I needed to be in the crowd in order to get engagement from this group.
yeah,
So I asked them, "Hey, when Michelle was up here speaking just a minute ago, what were half of you doing?" And they didn't wanna get called out in front of all their peers, but nobody was paying me to do the speaking engagement, so, like, you get what you pay for. And, I said, "You were all on your phones, and I know what you were doing, and I don't blame you for it. But the problem is this: you made a commitment to be at this event today to learn things that would help you scale your business. tools, resources, products, efficiencies, you name it. And yet here you are just focusing on one loan in your
Yeah.
pipeline versus learning about a system that can help you turn that one loan into 3 or 4 in the same amount of time. And,
Yeah.
everybody looked up, everybody put their phones down, and then we had a great session for about 45 minutes. I've
Yeah.
learned something when it comes to why people, and I think real estate agents fall into this bucket as well. Um, but why would someone with a transferable book of business make a change? And I want to be real careful with this topic because, yes, I come from recruiting, which I think is a loaded word. I come from that world, but that is not what Model Match does. Model Match is a data and intelligence provider that is, in my opinion, goes down a rabbit hole deeper than anybody goes and is about to become also the simplest platform on top of having the most data. Thank you to feedback from friends like Dino.
You're gonna hit the easy button for us, huh?
That is the goal. The goal is every new feature we have to think about, is it easy? Is it easy? Is it simple? Is it easy? Is it simple? If I give you a 14-day free trial, can you figure it out on your own without you having to go to tutorials
Yeah.
and videos and things like that? But here's what I was going to say, going back to the recruiting side. Why would someone with a transferable book of business that's already making good money make a change? There's only 2 reasons, and nobody's been able to convince me otherwise. And it's been a long time since I've been saying this. It's to be able to do more business in the same amount of time or the same amount of business in less time. So let me say it one more time. More business in the same amount of time or the same amount of business in less time. Now, how you get there could fall underneath a lot of different buckets. It could be product, it could be price, it could be operations, it could be your tech stack, it could be your leaders. But it does come down to systems. And that's not easy to quantify. Like, you have to do some due diligence to figure out what it is that's going to help save you just a little bit of time to do more business or to spend more time with your family. I remember once somebody telling me, the reason I'm not committing to making a change right now is that there's only one thing that's motivating me and nobody can fix it for me. And this is a long time ago. I said, well, what is that? He said, Eric, I've busted my ass to make enough money to buy a beach house. I've always wanted a beach house. And I bought that beach house a couple years ago. Do you know how often I get to go to that beach house? And I said, how often? He goes, never, because I'm working past whoever knows what time Friday night. By the time I get done, I'm not ready to go on Saturday. And I got to be back on Monday morning and probably over the weekend also. And so I stopped him and I said, but yes, you can. It's just going to take work for you to figure out, how do you buy time so you can do the same. He wasn't asking to do more business or make more money. He just wanted a little more time so he could go to his beach house. So let's go back to the laziness versus leadership kind of thing. What I love about what you're doing, Dino, and what Ethos is doing is you are systematizing things. But my gut tells me, of course, I don't work for you. I haven't been at your office for 2 days to see how you sort of create accountability relative to the systems, is that you're going to do the due diligence to figure out what is best in class across the things that the company needs to be successful. And then you're going to systematize those tools and resources within your organization. Well, that's a little different than what a lot of our industry does, which is, here's 10 things that basically do the same thing. You decide. How do you scale that? How do you systematize that? How do you create efficiencies? How does that disrupt marketing? How does that disrupt operations? How does that disrupt goal setting, leadership, training? That's one of the challenges I think our industry fights. And it's not that we don't have great leaders. It's just too many times we don't commit to something. And by the way, if it was the wrong something 6 months later, a year later, be a leader. Say it was the wrong thing. This doesn't work for us anymore. And this is what we're going to do moving forward. And I know that's got to be a struggle for you, but it's a struggle that you embrace because you've committed to the consistency and the predictability that is within the system.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I've been hard on myself lately because um I feel like I haven't been a good enough of a leader. And and I think sometimes, like, I got so wrapped up into trying to make things better that I forgot to just step back and be a good leader to people. Um and also release things slowly. Like, I don't have to finish the Taj Mahal all at one time.
Right.
Uh which I'm trying to do, by the way. But I am stepping it back, right? It's like, we'll just do one floor at a time.
Yep.
And eventually we'll have this big, great building that I think everybody can live in. But
Can I ask you a question though? You're being hard on yourself about this leadership piece, but it sounds to me like, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm not trying to play therapist, so I'm sorry if that's how it comes across. But um, it sounds to me like what you mean by that is in the midst of choosing tools and resources and the system. Do you feel like maybe you've lost sight of the human sometimes that's within that platform? Or I'm curious, what are you being hard on yourself about?
I have been so wrapped up in how busy I am, like legit, right? And it's not that, like, I believe in systems, but and I have two assistants now, and I've hired an onboarding person now, and I've hired a director of ops now, and I'm trying to do these things to release pressure off of me.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if you look at my calendar, and a lot of it right now is development, but it starts at 6 a.m. and it's booked, 6 to 7. Then I got a little bit of time for like 2 hours. Then I got another development, booking from 9 to 10. And then boom, it's literally today. I had 30 minutes before we started. And right now, as we speak, it's 1:39. And as soon as we get off, I think I'm gonna have 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and then I'm stuck until 5 in back to back to back meetings. And my wife was like, "Oh, yeah, Mr. Busy," right? Before I was really busy as a loan officer, but I said, "Babe, I could I could do an initial consultation in my sleep." And I could reply to messages or text messages. Nobody could watch me. But these days, everything I do is on Zoom, literally
Mm.
everything. So I actually prefer it, but it's exhausting because I have to be engaged one-on-one every single time. There is no, and I don't believe in turning off the camera just so they can't see me doing this stuff,
Yeah.
like some people do. I
Right.
believe in, if we're gonna have a meeting together, then we need to engage, right? Like, we need to see each other. It's the new belly to belly. And what I've gotten away from is, like, calling the loan officers, talking to them, finding out how they're doing, seeing if there's anything I can do to help, and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get better at that. Like, just before this, one of the things I did is I recorded a video,
Mhm.
that I wanted to send out to everybody in the company, and it's like, why ethos, and what a mortgage advisor is, how a mortgage advisor has a career, a loan officer has a job,
Mhm.
and what do we do that's different? Because what's happening is like, I've given this speech a million times over, but now we have so many new people, and it's starting to fade. And I'm like, there you go. I need to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Let the people that have heard it a million times, they can fall off if they want.
Right.
And now they're in, right? But like, all these new people need to hear it
Yeah,
over and over
you owe it
again.
to them. That's right.
I owe it to them,
Right.
right? So part of my new system that I'm trying to build is I'm creating my ethos operating system, right? And
Yep.
I'm excited about it because I finally get to bring it into one place. I'm even trying to build my own CRM out of it, because I don't think a CRM needs to have a million and one things. If you're if you really are a power user, which, by the way, 98% of everybody is not a power user
Mm-mm.
on CRM,
Right.
uh, you know, you don't need all of the stuff. And that's why nobody uses CRS, because it's too damn confusing. So I'm trying to limit it, and I'm trying to create it so that it's 28 years of knowledge into this ethos operating system, and it'll function in a way, in a workflow that I functioned as a mortgage advisor. So I'm lazy, or leadership, right? I'm trying to realize that, um, not everybody's lazy and not everybody's a good leader, but I was a workhorse and I don't get tired. Like, I don't know what it is. I
Yeah.
don't
This
get
is why
tired.
you and I get along, by the way. Yeah, I
I'm
just don't.
super excited to wake up in the morning,
Yeah.
and I'm super excited to get to work. And there's times when I'm like, man, I wish I could send my wife. She's from Iowa, by the way. I wish I could send my wife and kids back to Iowa for a week just so I could work all night long, right? Because that's the only reason why I come home, is otherwise I would just keep
That's
going
funny.
because I'm
Yeah.
so excited about everything we're doing right now. It's
Right.
like, it's the greatest thing that's happening.
I love that.
And there's so much opportunity, and there's so many awesome, like, avenues you can take with AI. If your eyes aren't open, right? Like loan officers, if your eyes aren't open and you're not attempting new things right now, you're failing. And if you just I, I'm trying to take it on my shoulders as the leader to do it for you guys and show you guys and pave the way. But if your leader, wherever you are, isn't doing that, even if they are, you should be doing it, right? Like a mortgage advisor, whether you're at a place that pays you W-2 or you're 1099, whatever, it's still your book of business. If you're a lead guy, okay, it's a little different. But if you're a self-gen referral based guy, you are self-employed. It is your book. It's your book of business. It's your client for life. And you need to remember that. And you need to pave the way. You need to do whatever it's going to be. I was coaching a guy yesterday, and I was asking him, "How's it going at your new place?" Right. And he said a few things. I'm like, "Hey, just remember," I go, "this is your business. And if that doesn't work for you, you should do it your way. If they
Yeah.
tell you that you can't do it that way, as long as you're being legal and ethical, don't stand for it. Always do it your way because it's your way. It's your book of business, and they're your clients."
Yes, yes, and yes. I've talked to companies before. There's an enterprise model match user that about a month ago lost a gigantic team. I'm talking a company within a company. It was that big. And I picked up the phone and called one of the co-founders of that company and just said, "Hey, I just heard the news. I saw what happened. Obviously, I can't do anything for you, but I wanted you to know, um, I know that sucks, but I want you to think of something in the midst of this moment that feels probably pretty terrible. The reason it probably happened is that you guys were not a match for each other anymore. It just was the core competencies didn't line up anymore. 6 years ago they did, but they've grown, you've grown, the company's not the same, maybe they've stayed the same, and maybe it's time to move on. This opens up opportunity for you in a geographic market where maybe, you guys had grown apart, but you were still together, there was revenue coming in, that's what kind of hurts. But the beauty of this business is that although a loan might be a loan, how you get from point A to point Z is not the same. And so to your point, you gave great advice. There's another component to that also though. And when in one of my recent speaking engagements, this came up as well. And there was a slide that I went through, and I don't remember what slide came up, but I got interrupted in my own ADD brain. And I said, "Hey, can we divert for just a second? Stop calling your past book of business your database. Stop doing that." And everybody just kind of looked at me. And I actually had asked someone, when was the last time you made a change? 3 years ago. And I said, "Okay, when you made that change, what was the thing you were most sensitive about when you were making that change?" And everybody says the same thing. I mean, maybe it's onboarding and acclimation or meeting new people or whatever. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is my database. I built my database. I want to keep my database. And as a data guy, yeah, we can talk about that. I've got solutions for those things, but that's actually not why I wanted to have the conversation. I said, "Why do you call it your database?" It's not coming close to doing the value, to giving the value of what this actually is. So let me ask you a different question. Do you save money? "Oh yeah, I've been saving money since I was 25 years old, 30 years old." Great. Where do you keep your money? "Well, I keep it in various retirement accounts. I got a 401k, I got a SEP, I got a Roth, I got a this, whatever." When you look at those accounts, what do you call it? It's my portfolio. And what does that portfolio have?
I
It
thought you were
has,
going to say my future ex-wives.
well, yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I call it.
You gotta be careful who
Just
you ask
kidding.
this question to, that's for sure. I got lucky. Um, I said, "And what happens with that portfolio? What's your expectation over time that it grows in value? What do you call that?" "I call it equity." Okay. All right. So then why do you call this Excel spreadsheet a freaking database? That is your portfolio. Let me ask you another question. Were you around in 2008 when the world came to an end financially, and your portfolio probably lost how much? I mean, mine lost like 60% in value. Terrible timing too, because my business went from X amount of income to literally zero. I lost 70% of my income and I lost 60% of my portfolio.
Yeah.
But here's the difference. in your portfolio of past customers and all of your agent and referral partner contacts, when the market tanks, yes, your volume might go down. You went from being a $30 million LO to being a $20 million LO because refis aren't falling off trees anymore, maybe. Okay. But did somebody sneak in the middle of the night on your retirement portfolio and steal 30% of the actual stocks themselves, or are they still sitting there? Oh, no, they're still sitting there. Okay, so when the market comes back, what does that mean? It means the value comes back while I continue to stack on stocks. Well, if I walked into the middle of the night and stole 30% of your past customers, would you be okay with that? No. But you're not protecting the equity of what you've built all this time. To your point, Dino, protect it, nurture it, manage it, because it will feed you for the rest of your life if you do those things. But let me tell you what I know for a fact now, because I have the property transactions and all the details, and I know that if you're not paying attention to those things, somebody else is. So the difference is they actually will take the asset, not just the future value of the asset itself. Stop calling it your database. It's your portfolio. Manage it and protect it as such.
I love that, man. I actually wrote it down. I'm going to start doing that. And I'm going to start telling that story and act like it's mine.
Steal it and tweak it. That's right. Make it Greek and make it sound better.
So, one thing that I think we shouldn't just assume, right? Like, people don't know some people don't know what model match is. Or if they do, they don't know what the real power of it is.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we break for a minute and explain what model match is?
Great. So, and I'd love for you to add to that as well, because you've experienced it a little bit and it's growing and evolving. Model match, really the idea of model match came from a problem that we were trying to solve. And I think one of the mistakes in technology or other things is that there is a product that's created for the purpose of making money versus a product that's created for the purpose of solving a problem. And so we sat down as a recruiting firm, my partner and I, and we identified a problem. And the problem was there is no LOS for relationship-based business development. And here's what I mean by that when I say LOS. If I ask you where the Smith file stands, you can type in a couple of keys on your keyboard and you can tell me exactly where the Smith file stands. You can tell me what stage is it, processing, underwriting, clear to close, who owns the next action, what documents still need to be added, you know exactly. But if you're trying to build a relationship with a new real estate agent, if you're a loan officer, and that real estate agent's last name is Smith also, and I say, hey, where does your Smith relationship stand? I'm going to get nothing but anecdotes. Oh yeah, I saw them the other day at this ... and we're going to get together. We're going to get together in the next couple of weeks. Really, what day are you getting together? Oh, I got to text them and call them. Okay, well, what are you going to talk about when you get together with them? I don't know. I just want them to give me a loan so I can show them how great I am. Well, there's nothing systematic about that, going back to your comment about systems. So we built Model Match originally to solve that problem, to be able to track relationships the same way you track a loan traveling through the LOS. Automated tasks, shared notes, full visibility across your team, collaboration, notifications, and customized staging so that you could say, show me everybody that I'm currently at the meeting stage with, what's the next action, and what's the value of this opportunity? Volume, buy side, list side, if it's a loan officer, same sort of thing. Okay, so we released it in 2017 or so, and it was to solve a problem for us, and it was solving that problem, and it was solving problems for our customers as well. But our clients came to us about a year later and they said, this is awesome. I don't have black holes anymore. Full visibility and collaboration across my team, better efficiencies, but I don't know who to call. Now, coming from the seat that I sat in, I immediately saw that as an excuse. What do you mean you don't know who to call? I tell you what, how about you pay me $2,000 a month? By the way, I didn't do this. Pay me $2,000 a month and I will coach you and I will teach you how to look at the other side of a transaction and put that person's name into a pipeline and go call them or send an email or a text message or whatever. But what I learned was, and remember at the time I was learning to be a SaaS guy. I still am very weirdly, I'm a SaaS guy. That's strange. Although vibe coding, everybody's a SaaS guy now. So my capital partners who are not day to day, they believed in us and invested in our platform early on, said, it's not your job to tell them how to fix that problem. It's your job to actually fix the problem. So we had a choice to make, and that was integrate with a company that was already providing NMLS and real estate data. At the time, there was really just one, and they were doing a good job to that company. I'm not going to promote them on the air right now, but we know who that is. They were doing a good job, and they were sort of pioneers in that space. And we thought, well, do we pick up the phone and integrate, or do we go spend the money and purchase the aggregator data, put the development team to work, and start building it? And that's what we did, Dino. And so fast forward, I am actually personally blown away by what we've built. The data goes so deep. NMLS, real estate, property detail, enrichment functionality, contact information for borrowers, payoff amount, equity percentage, lender grade AVM, rate, as deep down the rabbit hole as you can get across any platform when it comes to that sort of data. But our brains are never in, if I acquire another file, I can sell you more data. Our brains are, I want to acquire another file so I can show you how to use the data better that will lead to better engagement, nurturing, and conversion. Whether you're an LO looking for one more loan or one more agent, or you're Dino looking for a new office to open up in another market where you don't have a presence, or to infill with a loan officer in a market where you currently have, and then so many other use cases across the board. So, my tagline is kind of own the data, own the opportunity. Well, it should be all data relative to our industry and all opportunity relative to our industry.
Yeah, for sure. So let's take the approach of mortgage advisor, right? Not business owner, not anything, just still your business owner, but it's your business. And let's take a middle of the way mortgage advisor,
Okay.
10
Average.
to 15 million, right? Average.
Okay.
That's probably a little better than average even. But
It is. I just ran the data yesterday for somebody. It's significantly better than average.
All right. So let's say like 6 million, 6 to 7 million.
That's closer.
It's me, and I'm doing okay, but it's really not that good of a living. But I have this opportunity to go sky's the limit, and I need to figure out how to get more real estate agents to trust me and give me business. And I guess the first thing is what is my value add? I got to figure that piece out. I don't know if that's your job or not, right? It's not. So if I don't have a value add, my value add was I can close in 15 days and no loan contingencies and, a $250 a day penalty per diem paid by me to the seller if I don't close on time. And I had a great relationship in my area so that if somebody saw my name on an approval letter, chances are I had a higher likelihood of getting an approval than anybody else, right? Because they always knew Dino would close the deal. That was my value add. But how do I get a real estate agent? How do I pick? Let me back up. How do I pick which real estate agent I am going to go after? And then how do I get them to trust me with that? How do I approach them? But let's start with how do I pick them?
I'll get to that. Can I back up just a little bit though? Because you said something else.
As much as you want.
I've read some studies from a consumer perspective. I think JD Power put out a study, and it was significantly high, and it was that consumers work with sales advisors. 70% of the time, they're working ones that they like and they trust. It's not the eighth of a point. It's not that you can close in this many days versus that many days. Just freaking close, right? Set some expectations and meet those expectations. So on the software side, no, I have not systematized the consulting that goes through understanding your value proposition. But me personally, I do it. I do it in workshops, face-to-face with companies, and it leads then to the data. It's actually this exercise, Dino. We talk about the company value proposition, your value proposition, and then using those things to manage criteria within Model Match to go identify agents that fall within that criteria, whatever that is, right? And there's 6 core components that we generally track: business, leadership, operations, geography, technology, and culture. Okay. Now there's bullets underneath each one, but those 6 core competencies relate to an organization, a recruit, a referral partner, and a customer. Honestly, those 6 core components. And they're going to be different from company to company. They're going to be different as you go down the org chart. And when I say down, I don't mean less value. I just mean you've got corporate, and then you've got the region, and then you've got the branch, and then you've got the satellite, and then you've got the originator, right? Because there's going to be differences about me versus you, Dino, even if we're both LOs in the same office.
Yeah.
But the big
100%.
stuff is the same. How do we manage ops? What's our tech stack? How do we stack up from a pricing perspective? What kind of products do we offer? Okay, so we go through that exercise. Then you can start to scale. Well, then who's my target audience? Now I know where am I strong relative to a particular geography? Where am I strong relative to a particular product? Where am I strong, relative to certain consumer behavior? In Model Match now, we've got pre-close data that we're ingesting that's going to show you signals in the market. So what's the generational look of this particular market. Gen Z, Gen X, millennial, boomers, you can see all of that. What do the credit rate averages look like within this particular market? Who are the buyers? Are they referral? Are they repeat buyers? Are they VA? Whatever. Okay. Let me now skip to an actual use case, because what you just asked me, someone called me about a week ago and told me this story. So this is a super specific use case. And it's something that a $6 million LO can do, but they're not doing it. So that $6 million LO gets a pre-qual borrower. And in this case, real story, it was a disabled veteran. Okay. He's already got the relationship. It's already been pre-qualled, but that there's no property. And this customer needs what? An agent. They need an agent. What does the $6 or $8 million LO or the $40 million LO generally do in that case? Refer them to who?
I would imagine whoever they already do business with.
That's right. They refer them to their top agent. And there are statistics that show that, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but on average, loan officers get the majority of their volume from their top 1 or 2 referral partners. However, on average, agents are way more diversified. If the LO falls off a cliff, that agent's not out of business. If the agent falls off a cliff, you're out of business. Literally, you're starting over. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's what this LO did with that pre-qualified borrower. They have their top agent and they want to show that top agent love, right? So they called the top agent. But then they went into Model Match and they searched for agents in this particular market. It was a town in Texas. And they did the research to see who are the agents that do more of their business VA. They know that market. And they picked the top 3 or 4. They looked to see who are 2 I've never done a loan with before. And they can see all of that inside a Model Match. And they referred to those 2 agents who now you've used. And I don't think that's a bad thing, right? You are still trying to help this customer by using the data to refer them to an agent that understands their specific use case. They referred that borrower to those 2 other agents. I don't remember who got the loan because it doesn't matter. He now has a relationship with 2 agents on a consumer that was an actual potential loan deal. And those agents are now sending him business. And it was just you just did one thing different. Instead of taking that opportunity and referring it to your favorite LO or agent, you picked 2 using data that met the criteria that you have no relationship with.
Yeah.
And I could keep going. I mean, you and I could use that one use case and come up with 20 other use cases, quite frankly. I was in front of a group not that long ago, maybe 6-8 months ago, and it was sort of a President's Club trip for a it wasn't a President's Club trip. I wish it was. Then I would have been in Aruba or something. It was like it was President's Club, but it was like their annual meeting. So it was at some golf course or something. And there were 3 people in the room. I asked the CEO, hey, is there anybody here that's relatively new to the industry that qualified? They're like, oh yeah, we got 3 people that have only been in the industry for 18 months. And their run rate is over 15 million in volume already.
Wow.
And so I didn't know these people. And I went through my dog and pony of the 6 core components, how to learn your value proposition. Then once you know the value proposition, build criteria out of it, use the criteria to identify opportunities using data, and then action the data. So I asked these 3 to stand up and I said, how'd you do it? And let me guess, your mama was a loan officer and she just handed you her book of business. Nope, that wasn't it. You're total lead gen. That's all you're doing. Nope, started with nothing. What did you do? I learned my value prop. I used data to identify opportunities, and I made phone calls over and over and over again. And I looked in the room and I said, okay, if these three do 15 million, that's 45 million in volume. You do realize, and this was a couple years ago when it was a tough market. So you do realize that's 45 million none of y'all got, but it was sitting right there in front of you. So sometimes you got to put your rookie brain on, and that's the solution to your problem.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple comments on that. Because data, so sometimes just calling, getting after it works, right? And I do believe it does. Just the effort of doing something always produces something, right? But I remember one time my title rep, and he was just a master at connecting people, a master at meeting people that had a concept or something, and he'd introduce him to somebody else. And his whole thing was he'd never show up without an idea of how to make their business better.
Mm-hmm.
So that was how he always grew his business. He was and he still is a beast of a title rep. And he did a presentation one time for us to teach us how to use the same tool that he uses when he presents to realtors. He's like, all you guys got to do is replicate this presentation exactly the way I do.
Mm-hmm.
It works every time. And it was data driven. So what he said is like, all I do is I go and I meet realtors and I get them to start thinking about how they can grow their business. But how are they going to do that? You know, what kind of decisions are they going to make? And we'll start with the easy one, the first one. Every realtor is like, what's your farm? And he's like, every realtor always wants to know about their farm. Like, this is the farm I want to work.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, it's so easy. He goes, and he actually pulled out an iPad, connected it to the TV, and he's like, let's just draw a circle around this map of what you think your farm is. And then he pulls it up and he's like, let's just analyze your farm. This is how many deals were done in this farm all of last year. How many of those deals do you think you can get? And he goes, well, I'll tell you right now, here are the realtors that all closed the deal. The highest producing realtor in this got, I think it was like 15% of the deals. It got split up. He goes, let's just assume you get every single deal here. And you made 3%, 4%, right? On average. Well, this is how much money you would make. And it came out to like, I don't know, it was like $150,000. And keep in mind, we're in Orange County, California, right? So you're not gonna get 100% of every deal in a farm.
Right.
And that was his point. It's like, you're just not, no matter what. And if you do, you'll have been working it for 20 years plus before you can even get there, right? So he's like, data will tell you that this is the wrong farm for you. Just because you live here,
Right.
it does not make it the right farm. So what you need to do is now stop saying geographically, this is where I want to work, and start analyzing data to figure out where I should be working. Yep. And then start backing into all of this stuff. So same thing for a loan officer is, don't just go after a realtor to give you business. Like, what a waste of time. I did it a million times over before this kind of data was even available. Right. And I was like, gosh, man, I really hit it off with him. Can't believe I haven't gotten a deal. Well, then I finally started getting data like this one day, and I was like, he wasn't cheating on me. He just didn't do any deals. Who knew?
Right. That's right.
Right.
Great point.
And I think it's important, especially in today's world, you have to analyze data so you can make better decisions, right? So I think just going back to that question of, we got a middle of the way producer and he wants to go after realtors, you're going to probably waste your time just randomly picking people. And oh, by the way, you might know that realtor is really busy, but if they're doing all listings, then you better change your strategy about how you're going to get in with them. And oh, by the way, most of the time, a realtor that's going to make a loan officer any kind of money, it's a buyer's agent, not a listing agent, right? Not saying that there's not strategies, working open houses, doing various things, right? There's all sorts of stuff you can do, but you got to have the data. That's why with Model Match, I really do love the data in it. and it's rich, right? Not everybody digs as much as I do, or geeks out on as much as I do, but by all means, every decision we make should be almost every decision we make should be data driven. So
No, I
like,
look, I couldn't. I totally agree. And you bring up the lowest common denominator, which we should never forget, which is if all you use is the intelligence to know not where to spend your time, well, you just saved yourself a lot of time. We talked about earlier, if the two things are more business the same amount of time and the same amount of business in less time, it's an efficiencies play. It's a time play. And to your point, very quickly, you can identify where you should not be spending your time. Back in the day, we used to call them tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 um, opportunities. A tier 1 was someone that you knew something about, like you had a relationship with them already. Maybe you've done a transaction. A tier 2, you know something about them through somebody else, so you can validate through another person. A tier 3 is a name off of a park bench. This is before we had access to data. And you think about the amount of time that we wasted calling people because they had a cool picture on a park bench. And they must have a little bit of money if they could afford the advertising on that damn park bench. But it turns out they don't do anything. So, yes, to your point, start by just identifying where you shouldn't be spending your time. What pond should you be fishing in? As you go deeper down the funnel, that data will actually tell you, well, how strong does the rod have to be? What kind of line do you need to have? What kind of lure do
yeah,
you need to put on the end of it?
yeah.
And now you're getting dialed in for sure.
Oh,
Another one, and one more quick one is in this talk I was giving a week or so ago, we analyzed the borrower churn of basically just the market that I was in. So just Louisville, Kentucky, as an example. And what I was showing them was on average, the borrower churn in that market was over 30%, and the churn was up 60% year over year. What that means is people in this room did a purchase transaction that refinanced with somebody else. And it probably wasn't because it was a big servicer or a call center. And I could show you right now, if you want me to pull up your NMLS ID, that you probably just lost it to your competitor down the road who did a better job of staying on top of that. So data can also simplify some of the easy things. You already did the heavy lifting. You already dug the ditch. You already built the relationship and the trust and closed the original transaction. And now you went to bed at night, you forgot, and somebody walked in there and again took your equity.
yeah, yeah. It goes back to that portfolio thing. So I was just about to actually say the exact same thing. I'll say it again, just a little differently for people. As a loan officer, mortgage advisor, if you can if you can get on Model Match and look at all of your transactions, and then look to see how many of those people that you did a loan for are now somewhere else, not with you, somebody else. Nothing should piss you off more than
Right.
that data,
That's right.
because something is wrong with your system. It's a system problem. You're not keeping an eye on things. You're not protecting your portfolio. And it is your portfolio. Every single closed loan is your portfolio. So protect it. And you can't protect it just by, you know, hugging it all the time. You got to have a system around it. And oh, by the way, even a phone call, it goes a long way, but that's not enough either. Add a text message every once in a while. That's great. That's not enough either. Add a gift every once in a while. That's great. That's not enough either. Add a note card every once in a while, right? Add a social media comment and a like. Add and keep adding, because that portfolio is something that you need to be all encompassing all the time. You have to have your arms around the thing all the time in many different ways. And I'll give you guys all a little bit of advice of how I do it. I star rank all my clients, and the star ranking tells me how often I need to be in touch with them.
Mm.
I don't need to be contacting a 3-star person as much as I need to be contacting a 5-star person. Bottom line, right? How do you become a 5-star person, by the way? That's a great question. Thanks for asking, Eric. Uh, you have to refer me business, and I have to have made money on it. If you refer me, everybody, by the way, everybody that comes in is a 3-star, and from there they can get downgraded, or if they fund and I like them and everything was great, they stay a 3-star. You're a 3-star. You're a green card holder at American Express. Love you. You're great. If you come back and you refinance with me, you become a 4-star. If you refer me somebody, didn't close for whatever reason, but you still referred me somebody, you become a 4-star. If you're a person of influence and I think you have potential to be really, really good for my future business, I can bump you to a 4-star. But you can never become a 5-star unless you refer me business that closed. And then, oh, by the way, the coveted 6-star. We got the green card, Amex. We got the gold card, which is a 4-star. We got the platinum card, which is a 5-star. You
So
get
you're
all
pulling out the
sorts of new
black now,
benefits.
aren't
You got
you?
somebody
We're
you can
going
talk
black.
to that'll pick up the phone, right?
That's right.
But the black card. What does American Express do for the black card holders? A lot. They'll do anything for them. Well, your 6-star for me, and granted my geographical location is a little different, I have to make $50,000 off of your referrals, not your loans, because your loans actually belong to somebody else that referred them, right? So anybody that Eric refers me that I made, if I did enough of them and I made 50 grand off you, Eric, you're going to become a 6-star. If you become a 6-star client of mine, you get anything you want, like literally anything you want. We will stock social media. We will find out if your kid loves to go to Disneyland, then we'll pay for Disneyland. I mean, so what if it's $1,000? You just made 50 grand off the guy,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And I think that's a really good way to kind of say it, right? Like your portfolio should be ranked and you should know who you need to pay the most attention to. And you should know how often and what cadence and what media, right? Whether it's social media, text message, handwritten notes sometimes goes a long way. There's so many things you can do. And that I think is how you manage a portfolio.
Well, what I'm doing now in my brain is I'm picturing, well, gosh, we could build that. We could build that. We could build that so that either via the algorithm. Now, what would be hard, obviously, in tech is did this person refer someone? But that would be a manual process potentially. But if you're willing to manage it, it's not that big a deal. As you go through this also, and you said this earlier in the conversation, I think it's worth bringing it back up again. You were saying a phone call is good, but it's not enough. A phone call and a text message is good, but it might not be enough. A phone call, a text message, and a gift, it's good, better, might not be enough. And you know what else isn't enough? Is thinking that by putting this into your CRM and setting it and forgetting it. My favorite part of the tagline "set it and forget it" is forget it.
Yeah.
Because that's really what ends up happening a lot of
Yeah.
times. And I know that when I've been on stage and I've said this, and I've got good friends at big CRMs, and sometimes they're in the crowd, and I'm not calling out their company, but I am calling out this idea of setting it and forgetting it, that you can forget it. That's really what's
Yeah.
ending up happening.
I'll tell you another thing too is I used to work for a company a long time ago, and they were trying to create this model, and they they came in to my branch. The CEO came, and the attorney came, and there was or compliance, or there was this whole compliance piece, and then there was this uplifting the way we should be doing business, right? Like everybody's going to start getting LOAs. We're going to hire LOAs. Everybody's going to be able to patch into them, and the LOA is going to do all of your chasing of documents, putting the file together, getting it submitted to the processor. They're going to go through your database, your CRM. They're going to make calls. They're going to do this. They're going to do that, and all you're going to do is go out and get business, right? Like you're going to focus on getting business. You're going to get rid of all their stuff, and the president, after the CEO made the presentation, she came back to the back of the room where I was sitting, and she looked at me and she's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, and she goes, "Why? What was wrong with that?" Like, we've talked a lot about this stuff. I've even modeled some of it after what you do. And I'm like, well, first of all, you're putting so much on one of the lowest paid people in the group. And to me, when I think about, like, if you said, Dino, right now, I need you to go out and generate 10 new deals. I wouldn't go out to realtors or anybody else that I didn't know. If I had to generate 10 deals today, I would just jump on the phone and I would call up or text message or both and social media or all three, every single person I know, right? But that should be my job.
Mhm.
It's not the lowest paying person's job to go cultivate business and create relationships. That's the loan officer's job.
Right.
Like, that's what you should be good at. Call those people, connect with them. Connect, by the way, connect, keyword. That low paying LOA does not give a SHIT if they connect or not. They're just doing their job.
Right.
You should be connecting with your clients. That is your number one job. I always tell everybody that's starting, I'm like, listen, you gotta get good at your trade. Learn how to be really good and then forget all of it and
Yeah.
just become a master marketer
Right.
and a
Yeah.
master connector. Right?
That's a very athlete's mentality also, which is practice, 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 practice. When it comes down to game time, though, wipe it clean and go play the game. And all of that will then put you in some sort of flow state. As you talk about that, I think about, and if you go into a model match today and you say, stack rank the top originators across the country right now, and we know some of the names that are going to pop up because some of those names are on there every year. What they figured out, though, is the opposite of what you just said. They're not doing $1 billion in production by themselves. It may be flowing through their NMLS ID, which is why it's showing up in Model Match as these huge numbers, or Scotsman's Guide, or whatever. The beauty of what we're building at Model Match is that it's dynamic and it's daily, unlike waiting every 6 months for a report to come out and see who's the top whatever. But when you look at that, and I'm not going to name names because they didn't give me permission to have this conversation, but the truth,
We'll edit it out. Nobody will even know.
yeah, when you go look at that list, and you look at the top 10 or so, the ones that I've spoken to that are on that list, they have teammates, and those teammates get paid incredibly well. Don't try to do math and think that that person that did 700 million in volume under their NMLS ID is making 125 basis points off that number. If you're doing that math, you're not even close. That's not the way that it works. What they have figured out, though, is because how in the heck do you do 700 million in volume and not blow up? You would spontaneously combust. You can't do it. Nobody can do that by themselves. But they're not paying an hourly employee to do these tasks. They're not paying a full-time employee $45,000 to be that common denominator trying to build a connection. These people are getting paid like originators at scale at some level.
Yeah.
And then that person's making a percentage of a much bigger number. It's kind of like, what are you more concerned about? The little line items within your P&L, or what's ultimately the bottom line? Which are what are we paying attention to the most? Well, those originators, that is what they figured out. I'm going to build a business within a business. And instead of making 100 basis points off 20 million in volume, I'm going to make half of that number off of 300 million in volume. And they're doing it in the same amount of time as it's taking you to do 20 million. And this brings us right back to the systems that you're talking about. And without data, without market intelligence, you're not going to get there. You're going to do what I was very good at early in my career, which is just outworking everybody. But there's a point at which that just doesn't work anymore. Like you hit a ceiling and you can't break through it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where systems, data, intelligence, leadership, that's where it all matters. And it's where I'm excited to see how your company grows and expands, because I do think what you're doing is innovative. I don't know that it should be, but it is. It is innovative. And one of the reasons why, you're going through some of the things you talked about earlier, quite frankly, is because you're in startup mode. And I know what that feels like. And being on the tech side, I don't know that I'm ever not going to be in startup mode. Like I joke around with my wife that, man, if I die before we ever, figure out a way to really monetize this thing, which, by the way, that is not the short-term plan at all. Like I'm not interested, but someday maybe, right? There's some value to what it is we're building. But if that day never comes, well, then I hope what somebody says at my funeral, at least, is that I can tell you this: those boys kept swinging and swinging and swinging and swinging. And sometimes it plays out and sometimes it doesn't. But, I got a great life, man. I live in a nice home. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got great kids. I'm healthy. I get to go on a vacation from time to time. I have a car that gets me to work every day. I'm gonna go home
You
tonight and there'll be food on the table. I'm golden.
you can't play cornhole worth of shit
I can't
though.
play cornhole worth this shit. See, you're I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna have to ask for a rematch. Um, but you're in startup mode right now, and startup mode takes a minute to get used to. And once you get used to it, the funny thing is you don't know how to act any other way.
Yeah. I I personally love it. I'm gonna finish this with a story of my dad.
I love it. Let's go.
So I come home every night and I'm pretty excited, right? And I've worked a full day, don't get tired, nothing. I'm all go, all green. I remember my dad telling me a story when he first opened up Mr. Pete's, and it was 1974. Actually, I'm gonna even back up to tell the whole story. So he opened up a bar in Huntington Beach with two of his friends, and they did well. They actually like got busy, lines out the door, everything started working. And then all of a sudden, three partners stopped getting along and working properly together, doing what they knew how to do best. And before you know it, just like a lot of bars started going under. And the day came where it was like, we're not going to make it. Bought his first house, had two little kids. I was 4 years old. My sister was 5, and he was out looking for a job. And he said that the guy like looked at him kind of funny because he had worked a pedigree. He was a like pedigree of the top bars over the years, right? He was a badass bartender and then a food and beverage manager, and then eventually had his own place. And the guy's like, "You're overqualified. Something doesn't smell right here." So he didn't give him the job. But it has like, "I guarantee I'll be the best guy you've ever had," right? Didn't give him the job. And then he said, I couldn't come home. He goes, "I didn't have the balls to come home and tell mama that I don't have any money to buy you guys milk." And he's like, got in the car, started crying, and just kept driving. Hold on.
Yeah.
So he's like, I just kept driving. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I was going to stop or when I was going to turn around or what was happening, but I just kept driving because I couldn't go home. And he said, and then I got to San Clemente, and there was the 5 freeway was shut down. And he's like, there was a detour. And at the detour, he got off. He ended up having to go around, and he ended up right in front of this restaurant. And it was called Page Boys at the time. And he's like, wow. He's like, this place is amazing. There's something about it. And just finished crying, by the way, right? Driving probably about, I don't know, 40 minutes, and ended up in front of this place. He walks in. He's like, is the owner here? And he goes, well, no, he's at the other restaurant, Laguna Beach. So he turned back around, started heading back towards home along the coast, stopped off at the other restaurant that the owner was at and said, I'm interested in buying your restaurant in San Clemente. And I think it was like $30,000 or something at the time. Right. And he goes, okay, I'll take it. And he gets home and he was super excited. And my mom was, of course, not super excited.
Of
It's like,
course.
what do you mean you bought a restaurant? With what money? What are we going to do? I still need to feed the kids. And he's like, Dino, I didn't hear a word she said. I just saw in my mind what was going to become. And then he said, I didn't have the money, obviously. So I had to go find it. And there was this loan shark that I knew. And and he's like, hey, is such and such here? And they're like, no, he just had a heart attack. He's actually in the hospital. He's at this hospital. They thought he wanted to go by and say hi or something, right? My dad goes over there and he's like, it wasn't like on his deathbed, right? Like everything was cool. And he goes, hey, I found this restaurant I want to buy. I wanted to see if I could borrow money. And the guy looks at him. He's like, Greek, you got some balls.
And this
He
was a
goes,
loan shark on his deathbed?
it wasn't on his deathbed. He
But
was
he was
just in the
sick.
hospital,
Okay.
right? Like he was fine.
Okay.
And he's like, you got some balls. He goes, I'm going to give you the money. gave him the money. My dad bought the restaurant, and the restaurant did nothing for business, right? Like it was terrible. But my dad would come home every night excited. And finally he goes, Mom asked me one time, like, why are you always so excited? We don't have any money. We're broke. This restaurant isn't doing anything. Why did you buy it? And he's like, Dino, I didn't hear a thing she said. I just kept envisioning what what was going to be. And and he made that thing the busiest restaurant in Southern California. And another just kind of follow-up story to that, it didn't happen overnight. And he had to work his tail off, but he kept fixing things. He saw one thing that he thought he could make better, he fixed it. Right? He saw people walking in, he's like, throw the burgers down. Let's be faster than the competition. And then one day he had this great idea. It was around lunchtime. He told the cook, he's like, load the grill up with bacon. Because back then you used to cook it all, right? Like wasn't
Mhm.
like any instant stuff. You cook it. And then all of a sudden people started coming. They're like, man, your food smells so good. Everybody driving by wanted to stop and have a burger. And then we had this one stoner that worked there. He was the only employee, by the way. And every day at dinner, because he always worked at, he would eat my dad out of business. Like he would always go in the apartments behind where he lived. He'd go smoke out, and then he'd come back, and whoo, he was hungry. And finally, my dad goes, Ron, he goes, listen, man, I, I don't mind feeding you, but you gotta just have a little decency here. I don't have a ton of money and you're eating everything. All right. Just have enough for one person, not five. Oh, okay, Mr. Feet. Okay, Mr. Feet. No problem. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then it was dinner time. And he said, he came in and he was so stoned you could see it, right? And he started, you could see him thinking. He's looking at the whole kitchen, knowing that he had to figure out how to consolidate this into one meal. And my dad made killer pastrami. So he made a cheeseburger, then he put pastrami on top of the cheeseburger and put a bunch of cheese on there to melt so that he wouldn't look like he was having two meals. And my dad looked at it and he's like, "Oh, that looks delicious." And that became our signature meal after that. And
Did
dude,
they
like
did they call it the stoner?
they call it the Mr. Pete burger, but it's funny because that particular burger is at a bunch of places now,
Yeah.
but it didn't exist
Right.
before that. And you got a lot of people taking credit for it, but my dad's the one that did it, and he'll credit. He's passed now. Like he'll credit Ron, the stoner, for that invention. It was awesome. Like what a story. But at the end of the day, he was so excited about the vision of what it was going to be. And that's kind of what I want to leave everybody off with right now is that, you know, whatever your circumstances are, get excited about something and envision what it's going to look like, not what your circumstances are today, but what it's going to be down the road. And I think you're going to find yourself in a much better place because if you can change this up here, and here, you'll change the rest. It'll come. Don't give up.
First off, just as we close this out, I guess, thank you for asking me to do this with you. Something tells me this won't be the last time we maybe have a conversation like this. And thank you for sharing that story about your dad. I was going to ask you if he's still with us. You just shared that he wasn't. I'll remember that story. I'll think about it a lot. I have no doubt your pops is looking down and is real proud of you. He clearly made an impact on you, and now he's making an impact on others. Because I'm not going to forget. I can relate to a lot of that story, but how special and how real that is. And we need to be reminded of those things from time to time. I can't wait to get a clip of that story by itself because I am going to share that with friends of mine, and I can promise you I'm going to be sharing it with my sons. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And guys listening, Model Match, killer software. I hope you guys go check it out. And if you have questions, just hit them up, ask, right? They're doing so much stuff right now. We couldn't talk about it all, but they're releasing a bunch of new stuff. It's going to be just, in my opinion, the badass software in that space. I think you're going to love it. I've already seen it, so I can't wait to be able to play with it and put it out here for everybody at Ethos Lending. But you guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for just engaging and being a part of. I don't know if you guys even know this, or Eric, you probably don't, but we hit 25,000 downloads in the 1 year time frame, which I was like, I mean, we got a small group, right? It's not like it's that big, but then all of a sudden we got to like a top 100 in Apple Podcast under business, and then the following month we went from 25 to 50,000. And I just checked over the weekend. I think we were like at over 88,000 or something else. So
Wow.
all of a sudden it caught wind and fire, and boom, it's like going. So thank you guys so much for all of that. I really, really thank you. I appreciate it. And remember, if you guys enjoy the show in any way, comment, like, and share it with your friends. That's what really helps us the most. And I hope you guys are getting some real value out of it. So thank you so much. We love you. We'll see you next time.